Nice to see you all. My name's Paul Ballard, and I run a company called 3DI, have been for about 10 years. So I apologise for the title. It's when you write these things months ago and they get published, you have to stick with them, but I realise it's actually rhetorical, really, and so the natural answer is yes. I guess my belief is that localization, by which I mean the stuff around translation, so I don't mean just the words, I mean the process that the translation is part of, that is key to your ability to satisfy the needs of your customers around the world. And I'll be going into more detail about the differences between translation and localization. But I'll first want to position why I think exporting is such a great opportunity for technology businesses. I've got a couple of case studies of companies where localization and their embracement of it has been a key part to their success as exporters. And then I've got some practical tips and hints to help you in your planning for exporting, where localization is going to be a factor. So I guess my starting point is that as a big number, people say you should put numbers in presentations. Here's a very, very big number that's very, very small. The UK accounts for just 1% of the world population, but we seem to be extremely good at exporting, have done for a very long time. We're very, very good at things like construction and football rights and luxury products, consumer goods, medical devices, telecoms products. There's a whole stack of technologies, of areas of life that people around the world want from us. They actually want our stuff. To some extent, our job as UK PLC is just to make it really, really easy for them to buy it and to get it and to understand it and to thrive on it, just as we do. So I guess that we should be in a better position to export. The CBI says all those kind of industries I just gave you, those are all industries that the CBI positions as industries that should be growing for export. But I guess my key point is that even if you're not in one of those industries, if your clients are in those industries, so if you're a training company, if you're a consultancy, and you provide services to the telecom sector, the retail sector, and they're exporting, then gear yourselves up and align yourselves with their export strategies, and business will come to you. You just got to make it very, very easy, and this is what I'm going to be talking about. So, and even the government wants us to export. They've got 4 themes to how they're going to help us grow, apparently. And everyone's been moaning about, oh, we've got to have growth. And they say one of the third thing on their list, and this is from their website, is we want to make it possible for companies in the UK to export. And actually, they are pretty good at helping you if you want to export. So they do provide lots of help, and actually we've actually used some of that help over the years. They have some great schemes out of the DTI that help you set yourselves up and design your products, your processes, your services to be attractive and to be usable by people in other countries. So it's everyone's saying we should be doing it. The other thing is that it is good for you. It is actually, this is some data from a survey done in 2011, and what you've got there is a graph that the red bars are the exporters and the grey bars are those non-exporters, and it's showing on the left in the last 12 months what growth companies reported, and on the right hand side what growth companies expect in the next 12 months. So all the red bars are higher than the grey bars. Basically, if you export, you'll grow more. Now that principle applies, the data shows, not this data, but the other, same as a survey, that applies whatever industry you're in and whatever size of business you're in. So companies that export, no matter what size you are, you'll grow more. And the other bit of data is that if you export, the first-time exporters inevitably become about 30% more efficient. So just the very effort of going through a process of exporting makes you and drives you to be more efficient. And, it's working. We are getting better. Just in the 3 quarters of last year, the first 3 quarters of last year, Britain is now Germany's biggest trading partner around the world. We overtook France for the first time in the modern age, and that's a big deal given what we all hear about the Franco-German axis of power and the political history they have there. But British companies are plugged into the German industrial machine, if you like, and when Germany exports, we export. Okay, so in most unexpected ways, British companies are benefiting from global trade. And really, if you're not already exporting or you're playing at it and it feels hard, there are almost certainly things you can do to try and make it easy for yourself. It's going to still have lots to learn though about exporting, and this is just another bit of fact is that bizarrely, and if you're not familiar with BRIC, that's Brazil, Russia, India and China, who are considered the kind of superpowers of fast economic growth around the world. And we still export more to Ireland, or did in 2011, than we do to those 4 countries combined. So we're clearly not quite doing everything as beautifully as we could, and we're not positioning ourselves as companies in the UK to take advantage of the massive growth happening not just in the BRIC countries, but in other countries that are growing strongly around the world. The other thing on this point is that actually only out of SMEs, and actually just as a show of hands, how many of you work for companies where you'd consider yourself an SME in some way? Okay, a handful of you. So some of you are huge then. Clearly some of you are huge global superpowers, and that's great to know. But only 20% of SMEs in the UK currently export, and virtually all of that is to Europe. So there's a huge untapped potential for large companies, but also small and medium-sized companies to gear themselves up to be able to export. I'm going to take a sip of this, excuse me. So I've set the scene a little bit, saying exporting is good for you, we should do more of it, we're actually pretty good, we could be doing more. And I guess I've now got to make the link between, well, so what's localization got to do with that? And this is the key here. If you and your companies can answer yes to any one of these questions, then firstly, you're very well set up to export, because you're probably providing something which is hard to replicate. You're probably providing something which has a competitive advantage inherent in it, whether it's a service, whether it's a product. And secondly, you're almost certainly going to benefit from thinking about language as localization as opposed to as translation. So if you can answer yes to any one of those, more power to you if you can say yes to any more than one of them, then you're well set up for export, and you're almost certainly going to benefit from localization having a bigger impact on your business. So just coming back to this distinction between localization, translation, localization. Translation, if you like, and I am being very simplistic here, is fundamentally about the words. Localization is about the process within which those words sit. So it's everything to do with taking a product, content or documentation and making it work just as beautifully, just as elegantly, and having just the same impact on the customer as you would expect of your customer in the UK or the US. It's this principle of, why would you expect anybody in another country to buy something from you if you can't even be bothered to not only put it in their language, but actually make them feel like you didn't do it as an afterthought? And that is, to be honest with you, historically, one of the ways in which UK companies tend to approach translation is it's a thing, oh my God, we've got to translate it into German. That German customer won't stop asking me to have the website in German, the online help in German. He even wants the UI in German. Goodness me, don't they speak English? The point is, and the trap we fall into is, for many of the industries, people do speak English, but they don't speak it well enough to feel that, I guess, either if you're trying to persuade them to do something, you need to speak in their language. If what you're trying to convey is a complex concept, you need to speak in their language. And so as soon as you apply that principle throughout all the touch points that your customers have in your process, then all of a sudden you've got to think about a process, not think about just, I'll translate those words. Because what it does, it pulls together all the elements, all the things that can help you be more efficient. It forces you to think and challenge some of the assumptions that you've got about the way, who owns the content, what's its life, why did we write it in the first place, You get into terrible habits of writing stuff in English because somebody asked for it 5 years ago, and you keep updating it. Localization forces you, when you realize you've got to create 20 language versions of it, or even just 3 language versions of it, it forces you to go, actually, do we really need to write this down in English, let alone then maintain it forever in German or Russian or Chinese? So that's just one way in which it pulls things together. But it also makes you have to think about, well, wait a minute, there's some people here who own the content, they're developing the content of our training, and we've got our customer who's signed off on the content, and we've got some development guys who own the skin of our e-learning environment, and how do we get all of those words that are sitting within all those different places, how do we get them plugged in together? And localization as a discipline, if you like, and as a process, gets all those elements working together. So I'm going to use, because I don't know how you think about concepts, I'm actually going to be referring to this difference between translation and localization in a number of different ways. And to some extent, I've started saying translation's words, localization's process. Another way to think about it is that translation is tactical, localization is strategic. Okay, so it does expect you to be looking at things in a slightly different way. So just to give you an example industry. Does anybody work in the video games industry here? I'm guessing not, but some of you may? No, okay. So the video games industry, we're actually pretty good at video games. I'm terrible at video games. My 17-year-old son is brilliant at them, but I can't do the thing. I'm like that with video games. I can't do them. But the UK is brilliant at making and developing video games. And from the start, we were export-oriented. From the start, virtually I think it's 95% of video game developers in the UK export. 45% of the revenue from UK video games manufacturers comes from export markets. So they have established within that industry a whole set of norms around how you create multilingual versions of product. It's just part of the way they do it. They don't even think about, oh, should we do it into German this year? They know they've got a ready market and they have to create it in 30 languages because that's what the market expects. So localization disciplines and habits are part of that industry and have been for many, many years. There aren't many other industries in the UK where that can be said. So the video games almost leads the way. Strangely, 3DI has absolutely no video games clients. And the reason for that is that they're too good at it, to be frank. When you get to a level of maturity within where translation and localization is plugged into almost into your DNA as a company, you stop needing so much the external expertise that helped you get there. So actually, we don't have any clients, which is a bit embarrassing. But they know what they're doing. Whereas many industries, technology industries, training industries, it still feels like hard work to create multilingual versions of what they do. And that's why companies like 3DI exist. Yeah. Okay, so it's another one of my ways of trying to make you think about localization slightly differently. It's going to become an imperative. It's not something you can choose to do. You're just going to have to do it at some point. It's all a matter of when. It may be that you decide to do it before you do your first language and you start to think of it as localization. You may wait until you're trying to do it in 15 languages and you've been through several bosses and you've been through various people who've left and had to leave early for health reasons. Whatever reason, if you are going to be exporting more, you are going to have to stop translating and start localizing. Because translation will become a burden. It will become the thing around your neck that feels like the hardest thing in the world. And think about it in terms of localization will make you, that will become your friend, if you like, and will help you along the way.